Well, good evening. How y'all doing? Good. Y'all fired up? I'm a little fired up. I don't know about you, but I've been watching a lot of news lately, so I'm drinking a lot of coffee, so my anxiety level's kind of high today. I'm just kidding. But thank you all so much for being here. My name is Clete Wetley, and I'm the communications director for the Alabama House Democratic Caucus. And over the last couple of years, I've had the tremendous pleasure of working with a true leader in our legislature, and that person's Neil Rafferty. Over the last couple of years, I've worked closely with him, as well as our policy chair, Representative Clark, and our caucus leader, Leader Daniels, and we've put together what we think is a really comprehensive and effective platform and policy agenda for this year. For this year, we called it Forward for Freedom. And it's really important because we often think about freedom in terms of being free from something. But in Alabama, we've got to be free to do things. And we've got to be empowered. And that really was the genius of what Representative Rafferty brought to the discussion. And our platform is hyper-focused on increasing opportunity for people economically, also ensuring that we invest more in public education and protect it, also to make sure that we expand voting rights that are still under attack. And we saw that reminder just this last Sunday in Selma, Alabama. Also, the other thing that's really critically important this year especially is to ensure fair and humane justice for every citizen in Alabama. Unfortunately, with the governor's package, which we'll talk about shortly, the Back the Blue initiatives, a lot of what's being proposed right now we really feel is a step too far, particularly expanding police immunity. And I know that Representative Rafferty will talk about that shortly. But we also added another plank to our platform this year. We call it the Liberty Plank. And that really deals with a woman's right to choose. It deals also with your freedoms. And really that's what's at stake right now in the Alabama legislature. So one of the great things too about Representative Rafferty that I'll say real quick is that aside from his great work, not only as our platform chair, but also as a whip in the legislature. He's that guy that goes around and tries to get us, make sure we're all voting in unison. As a minority party, it's really important that we stay unified. But also when he's not in the legislature, he's also doing a lot of great things. A lot of you may not know this, but he was honored by the Council of State Governments this year as one of the 40 under 40. 20 under 40. 20 under 40, okay. Sorry. That's even more special. And then also, he had a wonderful opportunity to study at Harvard as part of the Kahn Fellowship. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce Representative Neil Rafferty, representing House District 54. Thank you.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. Great turnout. I think we're trying to find more chairs, so please bear with us as we're working on that. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for caring enough to take the time out of your day and come here and just listen to me talk. But kind of an overview of things, some housekeeping real quick. There is restrooms that are back here, and there is bottled water back there on the bar. So if anybody needs anything, feel free to get up and go as you need to. Other than that, somebody was asking me kind of what's the agenda for tonight. And I think largely what I want to do is kind of tell you as far as what's some things that are going on, bills we're watching closely, bills we're pushing for, bills we're pushing against. But I also eventually want to hear from you. So, Clete, you'll let me know when we get to that point, again, where we need to do some Q&A. Because, I'll just stand up here and talk. So first things first, this session has been consequential and largely reflects what happened in November down in Montgomery. We've seen an increased step up in attacks on minorities, on voting rights, on increasing police protections that may or may not be needed, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So there's a lot we're fighting back against. Just so you can get a good idea, we're about halfway through the legislative session, not quite there, but about halfway. And there are 652 bills filed at the moment. About almost 400 in the House and nearly 215 in the Senate. So just so you can have a good idea as far as what that's looking like. Some things that I've been working on for this session particularly is I'm sponsoring 10 bills. I've also been able to and been fortunate enough to bring home just around $250,000 to House District 54 schools. So that's all the way from Tuggle and Wilkerson all the way to Robinson and Irondale Academy. So been trying to make sure I am not just saying I support public education, but doing and actually going out there and supporting public education. Okay, so to the bills. So some of the bills I'm carrying, I would like to share with you. One deals with, you might have heard about this. This deals with repealing the Alabama Uniform Minimum Wage or Right to Work and Right to Work Acts. So what this bill does is, some people were a little confused about it at first, but what this does is it prevents, y'all might remember back in 2017, City Council voted to increase minimum wage. It was then preempted by the legislature through the Alabama Uniform Minimum Wage Act so that they could not do that. This would just repeal it and then allow for local governments to decide, who have a better pulse on the community, who have a better understanding as far as what their constituents are going through on a daily basis, to make that decision as far as where minimum wage should be. For instance, the cost of living in Birmingham is much higher than it is in more rural parts of the state. So folks need a livable wage so that they can live here and work here and play here, not just have to figure out ways where they have to live 2 hours away just to get here on time for work, particularly since we don't have proper funding for public transportation, which is something I'll bring up and talk a little bit more about in a little bit. Some other things that we've been working on is a sales tax exemption, all right, for menstrual hygiene products, diapers, breast pumps, maternity clothes, and other things that young families desperately need a break on. This will remove the state sales portion, which who knows what the state sales portion of the sales tax is? And you can't answer. I'll introduce you in a second. It's 4%, yeah, so it's 4 cents. So it'll eliminate 4 cents. That might not sound like a lot. That's why the fiscal note's pretty small, but when we look at the big picture, particularly for a growing young family, paying student loans, trying to buy a house, this becomes something where every penny matters. Other than that, I plan on introducing a bill that would limit or monitor PFAs in our water supply. For those of you that don't know what that is, those are forever chemicals. I just read an article about what we're seeing is it's starting to end up in our rain as well. So this is something that we need to tackle on. I don't think that we need to be looking at the federal government to do that anytime soon. So I'm making sure that we can at least take care of what's going on here in Alabama. Additionally, I do plan on introducing a bill that would decriminalize marijuana. The thing is that right now we passed a medical marijuana bill several years ago. It got kind of botched and butchered through the process of negotiation. And we have this commission set up that is tangled up in lawsuits and can't really get anything done. So what we're looking at doing is it's even underneath the law, so that everything went perfect and we did have medical marijuana here, people would still be able to get arrested for possession of the plant. And I don't think that we're already having a crisis with our jails and with our prisons as far as putting people in them. And I don't think that, it's very effective in the eyes of public safety to continue to criminalize folks that are caught with just a little bit of cannabis on them. So that's what I'm kind of working on. There's some things that we've been pushing back on for sure. That goes with well, let me tell you about some of the great stuff the caucus was doing. So we did just pass the Glock switch bill, which would prohibit Glock switches. That puts us on par with the federal government. But it also helps our state officials be able to combat the ravage of violence that we've been seeing, not just here in Birmingham, but across the state. There was a couple of bills that were introduced along with this package, including one where we would expand police immunity. This bill was a bit of a problem for us because we were really concerned about what, police already have qualified immunity. So our concern was expanding that, and what would that end up looking like? How do you hold those who are supposed to be in charge of looking out for us in public safety accountable if they go wrong? Now, I do not, I back the blue, but I want to say that we need to make sure that we are, who watches the watchman, right? So we need to make sure that we're holding them accountable if they do skid out of line, if they do escalate, if they do abuse the power that they're given. Which I would say is not most police officers, but it's definitely something that we need to have accountability for those that deserve it. What else we're working on? We're working on the Alabama Voting Rights Act Commission. So this is HB 60 as well as SB 7, I believe. This one looks at making sure that there's an independent commission that's set up, that we're also looking at early voting. We're also looking at making sure that there's automatic voter registration as well. When you turn 18 and you register to vote, you automatically have to sign up for the Secret Service. So we'd just like to see selective service, excuse me, yes. Hey, that's an easy mistake to make, right? Easy enough mistake to make. But thank you for the correction, in unison from the crowd. Right? Please do that more if I do it again. But it's seriously, this is something that we need to look at to just make sure people know that they have a voice, make sure that they are on the rolls, so there's no surprises when they show up to go vote on the voting day, on election day. So those are some of the things. Finally, I will say this, is that I've introduced and been working on a bill that deals with portable benefits. Now raise your hand if you know what that is. Most people don't, so it's perfectly fine. Okay, so portable benefits, we all know what gig workers are, right? People that work on app-based platforms. Something that they lack is financial security that traditional employment would give them through benefits packages, health insurance, sick leave, maternity leave, paternity leave, and retirement. So this one would set up special accounts where those gig-based platforms could match the contributions put in by that contractor, that 1099 gig worker, where they could have this money that they could use to, work on the retirement, work on help pay health premiums or whatever they need it for. So we're in the beginning stages of that. We set up the commission last year, and now we're finally passing a bill to set up these special accounts and hope to get that through. This might not seem like a big deal to a lot of folks, but this is a big deal to people who are depending. There's an ever-growing and increasing part of the workforce who is depending on this for full-time employment. So we need to be able to provide them the financial security that comes with traditional employment through those benefit packages. All right, so at this point, I kind of want to hear from you. I gave you a little bit of my update, a little bit here. I'm happy to talk about more things that are going on. We can talk about more things we're pushing back against, particularly the library bill. I've heard from a lot of you about the library bill. I've heard from a lot of you about the Ten Commandments bill. I'll tell you that those will incur a very strident and unified pushback on those bills for a variety of reasons, and I'm happy to talk to you if you have any questions about why. But we'll let the Q&A part start. I do want to introduce just two people though, real quick. If you could stand up real quick. We have the Mayor of Irondale, Jay Stewart. Thank you so much for coming. And we also have Judge Carol Smitherman here as well. Great, okay, so Senator Smitherman will be joining us here in a little bit as well. And once he gets here, we'll see if he wants to say a couple of words and join me up here. So, because he knows what's going on better than the Senate, we're about halfway, like I said. He'll know what's going on in the Senate. I don't know about what's going on in the House. So we might be able to tag team on some answers here. All right.
Yeah, so people raise their hands. I'll
yes,
come by
see,
and
sorry.
put the mic so everybody can hear your question. So let me know who you want to answer first. So point them out.
I think we see two hands over here.
All right.
3 hands.
So the question maybe has 2 parts. Your comments on the traffic laws around the state, particularly in Birmingham, about performance driving, race car driving, all sorts of illegal driving. I know they're in the noise. There are state laws on the books against those, obviously not enforced. What are the obstacles to getting things done, like cameras in intersections, those kinds of things? Can you speak to that?
So we have passed 2 bills that would allow for also, not just cameras being installed, which I believe City Council has passed that resolution. So the thing is, we do not have home rule in Alabama. That means that when a city wants to do something like set up cameras to track and monitor for this, they have to come to us for approval. Now we passed 2 bills now that have to deal with the exhibition driving issue. One of them has where we can actually follow them and find the car and impound it, which we didn't have the capacity to do beforehand. Now what the city does with those is not up to me. We can only authorize them to be able to do it, but they're the ones that will have to implement and then obviously run the police force and also make sure that they are enforcing the laws that they have under local ordinances. Specifically cameras. So we have authorized them to use cameras not for the purpose of giving people tickets, but for the purpose of tracking these vehicles that have been involved in exhibition driving and creating a lot of the noise. That has been passed. We passed that last year or the year before. So we need to make sure the city's working on that.
Hi,
Hey.
I had a question regarding the thing that Wandel McMahon filed about the police abuse registry and what your thoughts and feelings and stance on that are.
Thank you very much for that. So I read about the bill today. I think it popped up on my AL.com, and I read the bill, and there is, I haven't read the bill. I read the article about the bill. So right now, I still need to read the bill to see exactly what the details are. I would like to talk to Representative Gavan and see kind of what her thoughts are with it. But it seems, my concern with it, just from the topic of it, is that it could be used with some abuse and impunity by police officers to take action and retaliate against whoever's being reported up there. I also would have concern about doxing and that kind of stuff. So right now, I'm not sure what the bill's trying to do, but I want to make sure that it doesn't do those things, that there are proper protections for people that might be whistleblowers or something along those lines too. So.
Go for a question.
Over here.
Good evening. I'm Karen Greiner, CEO of STARE of Birmingham. We help Birmingham school children learn how to read through volunteer tutors. So we're very concerned with bills that are related to education. We're part of the Every Child Alabama Coalition. So we have an employee who's very active down at the State House talking about that. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about where the House stands on that. That coalition is working on school funding reform so that it's a more, at least the hybrid model.
Right.
And of course, our second concern is House Bill 4, which we are concerned, that's the library bill or the jail the librarians bill. We're concerned some of the smaller libraries where a lot of our children would go to learn how to read or to get access to free books. These libraries might lose funding, from what we understand, if they are forced to take inappropriate material and move them out of the children's section. But what do they do when there's it's a one-room library? So we're wondering what we can do as citizens and as organizations, and what the status is of these 2 issues at the State House.
Okay, well, I'll start with HB4. So HB4 is the library bill. It's actually far worse than what you're talking about. We're talking about criminal penalties. And we're talking about it can just be one person that makes notice to the arresting authorities on this. So there's big issues with how the bill is written. I don't know if you can write this to make it any better. So far, it has not moved. But my understanding is that we'll see some of the more controversial bills kind of start moving in April, at least in the House. The second issue with the foundation program is what you're talking about, correct? So right now, how we fund education is based on the foundation program. That means that we're broken up into teacher units. So for every 16 students, you get a teacher unit. What this does not do is account for anybody with special needs, disabilities, folks that might need more help, like, with even like reading coaches and this kinds of things. So it doesn't really account for that in and of itself. So we're looking at changing the way we fund public education, and that would be through a model that would take those other kind of challenges that school systems might face, and then give them more money, more resources to be able to hire on more personnel to deal with those things. Does that answer your question? As far as where that bill is, I got a feeling it will go through, because it does have the support of both the Education Trust Fund chairs, as far as I understand. So I don't see there being much opposition to it, but we'll have to see. All right, before we move on.
Okay, before we move on.
Before we move on, I do want to introduce and bring up here our Senator Smitherman, the great illustrious fighter. Some of y'all might have seen him standing up for minority and human rights on the floor lately with AL.com. I'm gonna let him take a few minutes to introduce himself, and then we'll get back to questions.
I don't want to offend anybody up here when I said this, so if it does, I apologize. Praise the Lord, thanks. That's all right. That's all right, 'cause that's the guidance that we gotta have down there with us. I'm just telling you. Anytime you're in a situation where 27 of them and 8 of you, you got to have more than 8 to be successful with the things that we do. So, Lord is right there with us. I've been listening at my representative, and I want to say this to you all too. We have our standing representative, Representative Rafferty. I'm just telling you that. He's on top of the issues. You can see what I'm saying. He's talks to his colleagues and try to get them on both sides of the aisle to participate in whatever. You sure do. He comes up to the Senate and working the senators as well. I guess, you all are asking some real good questions about some things, and I'm just gonna chime in on one of them, and then I'll let him come back, and I don't mind addressing the question as well. And give naturally, you first want to answer, but I'll follow up with it. I just want to mention a little bit about the education. I'm gonna stop and just say this to you. If you want to visualize in the model of what happens initially, I said initially in the beginning, in the legislature, then just cut your TV on to the evening news, not our local news, the national news. It's the same situation. It's just that it's not televised like they are in Washington, D.C. Same problems come out of a large portion of the majority that you see coming straight now. To give you an idea, you have, what is his name, Elon Musk? He says the accountability of agencies, okay? The executive order just passed, am I right? That the speaker and the pro tem and the governor have established the same thing for the state agencies in reviewing them. And nobody's going in slashing like he is, but the same model. So I just want you all to understand, when you look at TV and you think about us, we dealing with the same things, same identical things. So if you don't think some of those things are good that you see doing, well, same thing. Let me say it like this. When you see me fighting on that floor, I'm fighting so them things don't happen to you. And I'll say this, and I think you will agree with this, and I'm gonna say it this way. As much as people ask us sometimes, what have you passed or what have you done? If you all really, really knew what we were keeping from happening to you, you'd be happy with us. Because I'm serious. It's for instance, take libraries. How many of y'all know about the library bill? Raise your hand. Okay, good. They try and put libraries in jail. They try and put these, and I used this story on the floor. I said, you all are trying to put these ladies who are retired, who just back out volunteering trying to help these little libraries, especially in rural areas. You trying to put them in jail. If some kid walk out there with a book and they handling the desk, they gonna have to face going to jail. See, and these are the kind of things that we have to kind of deal with on the floor through procedure measures. And we have to make them then make a choice whether you're gonna pass something good or we gonna be bogged down with this. You know, and that's how we have to do it. Because if we don't, the flood of things that would happen, you wouldn't be happy with some of those things that take place. The only thing I'm gonna talk about before they ask questions is the education. He was talking about the Education Trust Fund. And let me give you a little history. I know I'm telling y'all my age, and that's all right too. But it's only 2 people that's in the Senate that was there when we established the foundation program. And that's Senator Wagner and myself. We were the 2 senators when we set up this foundation program. And it was set up because of the court case that they were involved with the unequal funding of education. So it was set up. It wasn't set up as seriously consider all the things that we're doing now. I'm gonna tell you what spurred this, one of the main things that spurred this issue about going to dealing with the education was that the governor had, I think it's High Hopes. Her program was High Hopes, and she gave a certain number of schools $1 million who were failing schools to do whatever necessary to bring those schools up. In our city here, she gave it to 2 schools. She gave it to Hayes Elementary or Middle School over there, and she gave it to Washington. And both those schools pulled their grades all the way up, passed, failed, and everything. So the model had already been set by the governor with give it $1 million, naturally to go see how it's spent, and then to see the results. The results was immaculate. So I moved and we had 206 failing schools. So I put a bill in, and just for the record, for every day of the lives, thank God, that I've been in the Senate, I've been on the Budget Committee. Every day. So, you know, that's another thing I don't like. I know where they hide the money. So I go tell them, it's right there. We need to do this. But I put in a bill that required that we give each school $1 million that was failing. It was 206, so that's 206 million. They wanted to argue with me, but we got to have the money to do this and do this. And I just told them, like I told y'all, I knew where the money was. I said, look, we got $750 million sitting right here. I don't want but 200. There's 750 sitting there. So after that, one of the chairs, I said the one, what kind of man, without saying that. He said, well, we're gonna do something that you're gonna like. And I said, what's that? Then we started working on that. There's 3 phases, and the committee recommended 3 to the body. 1, to do nothing. The second one, to have a hybrid. And the third is to fully fund all those areas that Neil was talking about. All right, I can just tell you from our end, Neil, that it's probably gonna be the hybrid. And the hybrid means that they're gonna put a certain level of funds based on the budget they said. And in those areas where you need to help, but now we are just more or less appropriating each session a certain amount for those areas. It's gonna be a standard amount. You know, now one of the things driving them up on my end to that is that I decided to be a little nice just to go around. So we only have 150 something failing schools now. So I said, if you do the hybrid, then all I need is 500,000 instead of $1 million. So I actually have a bill in now for 500,000. And I'm trying to really push my people up there to at least do the hybrid so we can expand education and do a better job of it. So he is right, that's where we are right now. And I'm just gonna tell you, all you gotta do is put on your TV, especially in the month of April, it's gonna be wild down there. Yep. Everything that I just told you about Washington, all that's gonna be in there, the budget is gonna be in there, and all the things that you all may be asking us to do, we're trying to do in bills, it's gonna be in there. So it's gonna be a tough go for us. We have 3-day weeks, we may be up there late, you're gonna see us filibuster. And when you're seeing that, that's why we have to do that. Because you have to stop the process. And sometimes, this is the reason why we're filibustering. You're filibuster so that they can sit down and try to come to some rationale. So you have to do that. You got to stop to make them sit down and do that. Because if you don't, it's not going to be another incentive for the people where it's 27 to sit down and even talk about anything but a one-way train the way they're going.
Yep. Well, thank you. Here I mean, just to add on to that, I mean, it's always a good reminder that we are the super minority and that sometimes we have to flex where we can. Up in the Senate, that's a body of 35. There are 8 Democrats, correct? 8 Democrats. Down in the House, there's 105 of us. There are only 29 Democrats. Okay, so they can pass constitutional amendments, whatever they want, without Democrats on board, because they have that many votes. They have that amount of power. But what they can't do is overrun us through procedure until they do. You know, and sometimes they do. But that's why we have to be organized. That's why it's important for, you know, whipping together the votes, making sure everyone's on the same party so that we can fight back and make sure that we're given time for negotiate. Sometimes harm mitigation is what we even call it, right? So thank you, Senator. Thank you for all your hard work up in the Senate. Thanks for everything you do for Jefferson County and for House District 54. Yeah, absolutely. It's whatever you want to do, man. Okay.
All right, well, thank you. We've got a question back here.
Hi. So about 2 weeks ago, the Hoover Democrats hosted Susan DuBose, and there was a lot of conversation about her What is a Woman Act that is now a law. And in that meeting, she claimed to not be aware that that law prohibits altering gender on a birth certificate to reflect someone's gender presentation. In that meeting, she said that she would, quote, look into it, because that was never her intention. So my question is, in Alabama, supposedly, we dare defend our rights, but we're supposed to defend the rights of all Alabamians, including my child who will never come back because of fear for how they're treated. So, is there, I know that we are a minority, is there any attempt to keep her at her word, at least that word, and have some sort of initiative that will permit the update of gender marking on a birth certificate to reflect people's gender identity?
Okay. So, thank you for the question. I'm very sorry to hear that your child does not feel safe or welcome in Alabama. And that's, I think, what both the senator and I can agree on is something that we definitely want to do, and what we go down there fighting for every day is to make sure everybody who calls Alabama home feels safe in their home. There's no reason why we should be getting involved in all this. This is hyperbolic, you know, it's always drawn out of context, and it's an oversimplification of what we understand. And then to put that oversimplification into statute is pretty bad. Technically, she is right, because technically it does not say anything specific about verification on state issued licenses. The problem is that it's a definitions bill, and that we can see it being applied, and it's all about how that bill is now applied. That will cause the real issues here. So, I mean, the best way you're going to be able to hold her to account would be to follow up with her. Make sure that her constituents know that, you know, this is what you said, this is what I'm expecting you to do, and then move forward that way. So, let me know how I can help, all right, in that one. But other than that, that's it. Senator, did you want to talk about this? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we have another question back here.
Hi. Where are you and where are the Democrats, I mean, you're counting those, on the anti-immigrant bills?
So there are a lot of them that are moving through, and a lot of them have been approved through committee, and this is something that we have got to talk to everybody about when it comes to policy committee. We'll be having that later on this this week. We'll have a policy committee Zoom on Friday, and we'll be discussing, looking at those bills as they're coming up. Like the senator said, we're only halfway through the session, and I think that they're trying to get a lot of other things out of the way before we really start tackling those issues. For me, my stance is that we got to look at this economically, and we got to look at the fact that there's people that just want to come here and make a better life, and that, you know, we need a pathway for citizenship on that one. That's something that we definitely need to be talking to our federal delegation about as well, where they have the jurisdiction. The other thing is, I don't know if we do have the jurisdiction to be kind of enforcing a lot of this immigration stuff here in Alabama. And I think that that should be left up to the feds, because once you're in the country, you should be able to travel freely about the country. So this is another issue that goes back to freedom, that goes back to the freedom of movement between states, being able to go to where you might see better opportunity. This is not about open borders, okay, because no one's advocating for that, so I want to be very clear there. But we're talking about having a demonstrable effect on our workforce and, you know, on some of our folks that are doing the work that kind of keep Alabama moving forward. So, do you want to say anything on that?
I'm gonna revert back to what I said just a few minutes ago. Because on your TV, see the NBC Evening News, then you just think about us. Because this bill is another example of what I was just telling y'all. We have to deal with those same kind of issues. But what we try to do is that we try to put amendments on them so that they will be as less harmful, as you want to call that, as we can. We don't vote for them because we're not in favor of some of that crazy stuff they're doing. But we have to do that. That's our means of trying to, and a lot of times we have met with groups, you know, groups that these bills affect have met with us. And so they'll show us in here that if we had this amendment here, then this is tolerable here. So as you hear and see amendments on it, that's how we do that. And that's why, there, go back again, that's why we have to filibuster. They're not gonna ready to put no amendments on there now. They want it raw, you know, so we have to filibuster to then the compromise in the filibuster. Well, look, we tell them just like this. We said, look, we want to put these amendments on it, and then when we work out that we can get the amendments on it, we tell them before we can do it, we're gonna vote on the amendment, but we're not voting on this bill. We tell them up front, so it's not no put the amendment on it while you voting against the bill, because the bills aren't that good themselves. So that's what we generally try to do. So when you see that, you'll know that that's the mechanism we have to use to make them more palatable to the people that it affect. And then we still try not to let them pass if they don't need to pass. But that's what I just want you to know when you see that.
All right, well, we've got a couple more questions. We've got one over here, and one back over here. So
Okay.
running back and forth.
Yep. Thanks.
So, as the senator alluded to, obviously there's kind of a plan to blow a hole in the federal budget, and obviously as a state that receives, you know, more federal funding than we pay in, that's going to have some knock-on effects on us. Is there any kind of recognition in the majority party that there's going to have to be that maybe some things are going to change and that the state can't quite run as lean as it used to in terms of both, you know, intakes and outlays in the budget?
Right, so something's going to have to give. So if we put it this way, the Department of Education sends $2.9 billion, 2.3, 2.9, something like that, $1 billion to Alabama. And that is largely through Title I. That is how we fund a lot of our schools that are underprivileged. So if they're not made aware of it, they need to be made aware of it. And that's something that I think we do need to be talking to our colleagues about, even though, you know, what we can do about it down in the state legislature is kind of limited, other than getting prepared for it if it does happen. And I think that's why a lot more of these discussions have kind of accelerated as far as what we're going to do to properly fund schools that need that funding the most. Like the senator was talking about earlier, so.
One of the things that is under the breath that's being talked about, and just in terms of revenue, is of course is the lottery. I mean, there's a lot of talk going on about that now, and you're having a lot of movement in that industry on ownership now, and as a result of that, the movement on ownership is removing some of the obstacles that's there with votes. That it may be something that once, if we get into what you're talking about, when those funds go there, then you may see more of that conversation about that, and you may see a whole different direction of that revenue. Whereas in the past, a lot of people was talking about general fund and different things. You're gonna see a little more shifting if that happens over towards the education, because those holes have to be filled, what you just talked about. The thing that has protected us in the state, and it has helped us and it has hurt us, is that our budgeting process changed to previous revenue versus revenue that we project in the future so much now. So that it has helped us a lot because we've exceeded what that revenue was and be able to put them 750 million and 250 million times. And all these rainy day funds and things. So we have all those funds with a lot of money in it for these situations. So that's gonna buy some time for us until we can work out that other revenue stream, or until Washington work out and get themselves act together and send the money.
And just a question for you.
Hi, my name is Odyssey Langham. I am the owner of Odyssey K and Associates, a mental health treatment facility here in Birmingham. Senator Smitherman, you may be a little more familiar with my concerns. I'm concerned about Senate Bill 193 that is being filed by Senator, I believe it's Chris Elliott. The legislation basically, he's calling for compiling, I think it's 19 different licensing boards under one governing body. And myself and colleagues are concerned with the negative implications that this could have on us as licensed professional counselors in our licensing process, as well as the impact that this could have on our clients and our ability to advocate for them and have direct access to be able to speak up on behalf of our clients. And so I guess I'm wondering what your stance is on that legislation and where you all are kind of leaning.
I am certainly not in support of the bill as it's written right now. I've heard from you, what is your credentialing in it? So in LPC. So we got LPCs, I got psychologists, I got social work, I got lots of different kinds of entities that are calling, very worried about being put under the same kind of umbrella as what we might see with, you know, cosmetology or what's that, the on-site water management, right? So things that really have nothing to do with that. And, you know, my feel and view of the boards is that we really need to make sure that it's the professionals that have been, you know, selected by their peers or, you know, have been held in esteem of their peers, that they're the ones that are kind of directing and making those day-to-day decisions as far as what happens to the profession. That's pretty much what I gotta say. I know that, I don't think we've seen that bill down in the House yet. He's filed that a bunch of times, so I bet we're about to find out why we haven't seen the House yet.
You're right in your position on the bill, and let me just say this. Do you want me to start with what you just said, why it happened?
Yeah.
So you all know, the day that I really filibustered, that bill was on there, okay, by him. See, the calendar has a lot to do with it too, and that's something else. They understand that these two bills might be great bills right here, and these four may be terrible because of the time restraint and the limitations on filibuster. I got to start filibustering on the very first one. Some more stuff before that too, but so that we don't ever get right here. You see what I'm getting at? That's why the bill didn't pass the last time. It was on the agenda. But I'm just gonna say this to you, that remember what I said to you? Look at the news. Look at the news. You said, and I see one or two people looking at me saying, okay, what do you mean by saying that? I'm gonna tell you this situation right quick. Okay, the person that filed that bill on that same agenda, so you can understand the counter bills that was on there. This same person filed a bill that said that they were gonna eliminate the whole board of the Department of Archives and History. Retroactively go back and take off members whose time does not end until 2030. Then limit 2 people out of their own individual discretion to appoint who they want on the board so they could tell the history story of Alabama they want to tell and eliminate any other history in this state. Just that simple. So you have to understand the spirit of the person they talk about the bills he's talking about, and about the intent of that person wanting to have that central control over all these agencies and appoint who they want, versus letting each agency and board and whatnot count, the group certify their people who, by the standards in which they set. They want to set the standards for all 19 boards. So that's, I keep saying we are dealing with that every day. And those things are mixed right in where you have A, B, C, or D. So yes, and the reason that they limited them a whole lot to that, to limit like 15 minutes to certain things and 10 minutes to certain things, they limit us too. But the one advantage that I have, that knock on wood, I thank the Lord for allowing me, I had the chance to serve as President Pro Tem of the Senate. And I can say this, I done said that I'm the only one, but it ain't nobody, the Lieutenant Governor, the Secretary of Senate, anybody know the rules any better than I do. And I know how to use them. So it's just that simple.
Just gonna add to that. Yep, please. I'm just gonna add to that our history doesn't need to be politicized, and it doesn't need to be censured or whitewashed, and that's what I think we're all kind of afraid of what's gonna happen with the passage of that bill. Is you bring in people who will then take and censor things that they don't like or feel like makes them look like they're in a bad light. We're already seeing this happen up in the Pentagon right now as we speak. I just went to the Pentagon this past summer, was able to tour around. There's tons of beautiful murals around that we're talking about, like the history, the first African Americans, the first Asian Americans, the first people that kind of broke through some of these barriers to become pilots and to become sailors and become one-star admirals and generals. So, and we already see what the Secretary of Defense's position's been with this DEI stuff, is that they've started taking that stuff down. So how is that preserving our history and making sure that we all know what they did? It's really kind of disturbing, not just symbolically, but what the long-term implications of it will be for future generations. So,
Thank you. You had a question, sir?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Mr. Evans, and I was wondering, it has something to do with really all of it, like the school teachers being arrested or feeling safe at home. Why would the police need to be, what was it that they're trying to do? The new bill that they're passing on the council.
the one that expands immunity.
Yes, why would they need immunity if they're not doing anything wrong?
I don't know. I watched that debate quite extensively, and we're already talking about qualified immunity. They already have a certain level of immunity. But this would take away a lot of accountability that they would normally have too. I don't know why. They're saying that it's because we can't recruit police officers right now. But I don't know how giving them immunity is going to make it. I don't think good people who want to be good police officers and serve their communities want this immunity. We've seen actually other folks, we had some law enforcement officers who were against the bill because they were like, well, I'm good, I'm not worried about this, but I am concerned about, somebody that they might know who, that kind of thing. So does that answer your question? Our biggest concern, I don't know where the motivation comes from. That was really not very well articulated on the floor, other than saying that we need to be able to recruit more police officers. And I agree, but we want to recruit good people who want to serve their community, who want to serve their neighbors as police officers. So we need to find another way to incentivize them to join the force that way.
is one of the things that we have to be careful of is because we are dealing with tackling the crime situation, that is a door for them to bring on these other measures like this one, like the other bill that's saying that the state is gonna take over the police department. You know, I mean, and we have to fight that off, and one of the reasons we fight it off is that we already don't have a little home rule as it is. And now you all wanna come in and control our whole department from the state, as if that's gonna magically handle our problem. Right. The problem is getting officers there, and we got to pay them more. They've got to get more money for them. It's a dangerous job, and we've got to provide everything that we can provide for them to do that job, and to recruit them. We got to do that. Employers don't realize this. I mean, basically, and let me stop for a minute. And once upon a time in my lifetime, I was human resource manager for a multinational corporation. I was the manager. And so I understand human resources and hiring people. But see, employers don't understand that now it's an employee's market. That's why it's hard to get people to work. That's why, because they want a certain wage and they gotta have employees. It's an employee's market, whether you like that or not, it is. And so because of that, we gotta get more money out there to get these police officers. Not thinking that we can just give them a little token, $2,000 or $3,000 and say, come on, be a police officer. We're gonna have to raise the salary metrics, so that we can get them. And I think that's one of the things, we need to work toward. But yes, we have to look at all those reasons why. And I wanna can I take a second just to use my analysis? I use the outplane. You ever heard my outplane analysis? Well, let me tell you. You take crime, it's right down there. You're on an airplane, you're on the front, you're the pilot. You see the runway clear. All right. On the side of the plane is wings. And under the wings are the baggage, we call them baggage cutout people, get your luggage out from under there. The ones who fill the gas, the kerosene, whatever they put in there. The guy who has the thing waving, telling the plane which way to go. All right, they're under the wings. So if this plane takes off and they're under the wings, it's gonna take them out. And they don't see them under the wings sometime, and they see a clear runway, and they are not accounting for the incidental consequences. That's what we have to do. We have to stop them, and even these criminal things, and say, yes, we all are dead that bullet for crime, and we're gonna do whatever we gotta do. But you see these, like you said about the immunity, you see these things under here? Have y'all looked at these? And I can tell you 9 times out of 10, they ain't looked at nothing. Because they go back to what you were saying about after the fact when you ask the question. They're not looking at it. The marching orders are, we gonna do this. And just go full straight ahead. So yes, that's what we have to, the accountability part, we have to stop and say, hold it. So when you see things, that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you. We've got another question over here.
Hi, my name is Ryan Jones. I guess my question is, I wanted to actually kind of say something pertaining to that. Police officers are not the most dangerous job in America. They're around the 20th most dangerous job in America. The number one is, logging workers. So,
Who?
Logging workers.
Logging, yes, I can see that.
From what y'all said tonight and other things, it sure seems like the Republicans at the state and national level are doing a lot of unethical, corrupt, and frankly un-American things. And I know y'all are in the minority, but are there any, of your across the aisle compatriots that are showing signs of splitting with the party or being willing to work with you?
No. Being willing to work with us is one thing, but here's the thing. With that caucus, I don't know how it is up in the Senate, but when the House Republican caucus decides that they're going to pass a bill, that these are priority bills for them, they get whipped into shape, and they will make sure it happens. Now, there's still time for negotiation and trying to make sure, trying to prevent some things from happening. But with some of these bills, particularly that immunity bill, that was part of the governor's package that she prioritized. Now, she gets prioritized, and apparently, and a lot of people get really worried about trying to buck the governor at that point. I'll just go on and put it out there. So there is a real challenge with getting some of them totally on board, or getting trying to find a way to work, trying to find a way to get them to split off from their own caucus in that regard.
So they're good with corruption?
Actually, can I add something back here from our peanut gallery? Because as communications director, one of the things that we do is we work with the legislators, and we also are tasked with doing a lot of research. And one of the things that people don't realize about police immunity as it exists now is that most officers actually aren't held liable because the cities take on that responsibility. They're indemnified as officers. That's number one. The second is that through all of our research, it's extraordinarily rare for a police officer, even one that violates department policy or violates the law, to be held accountable for it right now. And we're seeing that in Alabama. I don't want to bring up specific cases, but if you've been watching the news, then there's a lot of cases out there. Some in Huntsville, some in Birmingham, in Mobile, Montgomery. And so I think that's also what caused this to be on the radar. Is what they wanted to do was put out this idea that we're tough on crime and put out this narrative that honestly is false, that somehow law enforcement officers are being persecuted with all this civil and criminal liability. But I'm telling you right now, it's just not the case.
Let me say this in relationship. You said it. I would not stand up here and say that they were corrupt. I would not. But I would say that what he said about them as a overall caucus is that they are going to vote the way their leadership directs them to vote. Now, let me flip this over and say it the other way. That's why I had to say it that way to you. On the overall issues, in our case, 27 of them, then they're going to vote, or their intention is going to vote that way. Where we are blessed, now I want to say this to everybody here, where we are blessed under that same scenario, because also in this state that there are regionalized coalitions. You got North Alabama trying to take us out. What you read, you got Huntsville trying to take us out. You got Hudson Alpha want to take Southern Research out. See, so I want to show you that it ain't just Republican, Democrat all the time. It's regional.
That's a great point.
And for us in the county, I feel very good about saying we all seven work together when you talk about that, Republican or Democrat. We work together. That's why Jefferson County, that's why you got the stadium. That's why you got the other amenities that we do. That's why you got the genomics building that's down there on UAB. That's why we have it and North Alabama don't have it. Because that's one thing about us when it comes to Jefferson County. When we lock down on them, when Jefferson County, Democrats and Republicans lock down on the Senate, they back off of us. And so yes, I have to tell y'all that it ain't, that's when we get on the overall caucuses, the balance we have to have out there. But when we start talking about, and sometimes it even lines up where we have urban and rural. Because I just give you one positive example on that side. When we were getting the money for the World Games, Senator Williams out of Gaston was trying to take the money and go up there and do something else with it. And he had about 5 of them at the mic behind him over there. And I'm just sitting there filibustering. And then Senator Wagner gets up out of his seat. And he said, Senator, he said, you don't have to work as hard. He said, look behind you. And I was standing up. And it was a total of 15 other senators standing behind me. And remember, there were 8 in my group. So you see what I'm saying? They said, no, Smitherman is right. Senator Wagner is right. Jefferson County is right. And you shouldn't do that. So I had to say that to you. In terms of us, you know, we stick together pretty good as a county delegation for us in this county. But when you get out on them statewide things, that's when you see it gets the way we were just talking about it then, and we have to balance a whole different way.
Right. Well, thank you. I know that we've got about 4 or 5 more questions. I'm gonna start here and go around, if that's okay. We'll start with this gentleman right here.
Dan Johnson.
How
I
you
just
doing?
wondered if there's there a game plan or a blueprint to identify and groom more Democratic candidates for Alabama?
Boy, I certainly hope so. The fact is that there's a number of, so I mean, I don't want to go too much into the party politics, but I will say that where the state party seems to kind of not be pushing that so much, we're starting to see that pick up in other groups. For instance, you know, with Alabama Democratic Victory Fund, with Blueprint Alabama, with Alabama Progress, I think that's what it's called.
Persistence PAC.
Persistence PAC, that's the one. So I know that there's other people are tired of not having that. So these other groups are coming together, raising money, and then pushing for that to happen. I agree that that's a big issue, particularly when we want to talk about these midterm elections, and we need to get somebody on top of the ticket, somebody who's, you know, very competitive and who's ready to go, because that'll drive more Democrats to vote out. We need to give people a viable alternative. We need to give people a two-party system, because that's where probably better policy is going to be coming from. It's not going to be coming from being in the super minority.
To add to what you were saying, let me just characterize our state in my perception, Alabama, in the direction of your question. Okay, one of the things that the Democrat Party's got to, I think, focus on is that the kind of state that we are. Alabama is a moderate state. Alabama is not a extreme. People from Massachusetts, they tell us that Democrats in Alabama are not like hardly any other Democrat in the country. They said, because you all are a little more moderate. Alabama is a moderate state. That's why John Buchanan could win back in a Democratic state and run as a Republican, because he was moderate. This kind of state, our party has to get a bigger umbrella so that you can bring in more, you know, to where we can have a little more not diversity, but we can be more moderate, so that we can bring in people who are moderate. If we stick to be real enriched over on this side on the situation, you're gonna alienate the people who are right here. So that's what has to be done. And right now, it's having to be done. It's like a tree. It's having to be done, what he's saying about the branches, because the tree is not doing it like the branches are doing. So until we can get that tree to do it, it's going to slow climb to get to that point.
All right, well, thank you.
Good evening. I'm James Sullivan.
Yeah, please introduce yourself here.
I'm James Sullivan. I serve on the Birmingham City School Board.
Thank you for your service, James.
And I appreciate it, but with all the talk about the dismantling of like the Department of Education from a federal level, I know it probably takes an act of Congress to do that, but what if it happens? Like, what are we prepared to do on the state level?
So we did have that question a little bit earlier. But I'll quickly say, you know, that would be a 2.3 or 2.9, I can't remember the exact number, of money that we would not have coming from the feds. So I think there's a lot of actions that we're taking in place right now to make sure that we're starting to get prepared for that, in case it does happen. I'm not saying there won't be belt tightening. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying, but there's a lot of inevitabilities we gotta look for. And, you know, we can talk about that more.
So one thing, hey, look here. The other thing is too, the battle now is gonna be in Montgomery. For how it's spent, we're gonna then divide it, because he's gonna send a block grant for whatever he sends. So that's where you talk to your legislators, because that's where it's about.
All right, we're gonna do this as a lightning round here, so we're gonna start here real quick.
I'm going to try to be fast.
Okay.
Thank you so much for doing this. I watch those shows every night, and it's so depressing. I have to lock up the knives. So I know what you're dealing with, and I'm so grateful, and I value so much your institutional knowledge and understanding how to do the damage control that I know you have to do every day. So thank you so much. I don't know how you guys have the stomach to do what you do. So I don't have a question. I have a request. Please do. You may be doing this, and I'm just like new, fell off the tree and found out about these meetings. But please keep doing this. We need something positive to hear it, even if it's you're stopping that from happening. That's
We do it in the house too now. Don't let him get all the credit.
Seriously, if you could do this for us, and then all of us in here, we bring 10 more people every time we
I
come.
would love that.
So that we build a momentum, because I'm tired of sitting in my house going, where can I go and what can I do?
Yeah.
You guys have got to help us help you make it bigger than
Absolutely.
a room like this, which is still great because you ran out of chairs. So,
I know, this is great, and that's why I said, thank you all so much for coming here, because we cannot do our job without your advocacy and your voice as well. There is two parts to play here. I mean, we need us, we need people that are up there to fight, but we also need the public to know what's going on so they can fight back too. You gotta understand the power that's in your voice, okay? You have your representatives, your senators, the governor, they listen if y'all make noise. So this is a way to start getting people organized, let people kind of meet each other. That's why I like to open the doors about 30 minutes before we start, so people can kind of mingle and that kind of thing. Then please, yeah. But I have no plan in stopping to do town halls and to let folks know. I'll be doing one after the session as well to kind of give everyone, as far as, okay, so this is what we were talking about happening, this is what did happen, so.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We've got a couple more questions here real quick.
Okay.
Good evening. Charlie Williams, right here in Druid Hills. My concern is for the state and then on a national level also, how is Medicaid going to be affected? And also,
Right.
with that question, I'd just like to say thank all of you for standing in the gap, being
I'm sorry.
warriors for us, long-time warriors, and we appreciate all the work that you're doing. You have our support and our prayers.
I will say right now, I think the biggest concern is while we continue to push for closing the coverage gap, otherwise known as Medicaid expansion, what we are trying to do now is honestly make sure that we still have Medicaid from the federal government coming forward. That's a big threat right now. We're already seeing other red states that have expanded Medicaid talk about taking theirs and scaling their Medicaid programs back. This is something that's going to devastate and impact a lot of working families. And that's something I'm really, really worried about. But what I'm going to do is keep pushing the case for closing the coverage gap, because I think that's an effective one, enough to, hopefully they'll hear it up in DC that we need this, that you're gonna hurt a lot of people if you take that away.
Thank you. We had one more. Was there, who else had a question? Oh, yes.
Yolanda Flowers.
Hi, Ms. Flowers.
Hi there. Thank you all. As lady in the back and several others have alluded, thanking you all for what you've done and doing for us. You may have answered the question, but maybe not to my liking.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna put
Yep.
it like that.
Good.
Being an educator, in my past life, I guess once you're an educator, you're always an educator. But the concern that I'm having is in regards to the schools. You mentioned the 206 schools and 157 are still failing. But when we hear out in the media about the president pulling funds, federal funds for sanctuary cities, or those states with sanctuary cities. And so my thing is, what about our children? What are we gonna do? What's being done? And then I went working in the school system here in Alabama. I've seen some things that were not good in terms of our teachers, okay? They're not being scrupulous. They're not being forward and being, just honorable. I've just seen things such as that. So with the funding that we already have in place and that you're fighting for, Senator, how can we get our teachers to be, I guess you could say, duly educated, psychological evaluations? Because I do know that just because you're a teacher does not mean or you have that degree that you are a teacher, same as it is with a doctor, whatever profession you have. It is a calling, it's a mission.
Right.
And it requires the teacher to really love what they're doing, and without being all stressed out. So
So-
like I said, you may not have answered it.
I have not answered that yet. So there's a couple of things. Schools are now serving as social service agencies and mental health clinics as well. And teachers shouldn't have to, who are not trained to necessarily deal with that, should have to deal with that in the classroom. So part of what we've been working on is making sure more mental health professionals are in schools, making sure that there are other measures to help take on some of these larger social issues that where the schoolhouse becomes the grounds for it. Also, I think with teachers, we need to see more professional kind of engagement opportunities, things for them to get more continuing education, because the teachers I know, I'm the son of an educator, okay? She took it very seriously, got a master's degree, and got a blue ribbon school because of her application and the work that she did at that school. So she was very dedicated to it, but she always had a chance to learn more. And I think that's part of the burnout. So the classroom management issue where they can't handle all these social issues. There's also the fact that they don't feel like they have kind of an opportunity to really grow and expand and develop their craft and their contribution to our communities. And then also, we just need to be making sure teachers are getting the support they need from their administration as well. So that's what I would say there. I don't know if the senator has anything to add.
No, I think he's absolutely right. In fact, the opportunity is there to enhance those teacher skills. We put that in place because of the shortage of teachers initially when we had it. And you were bringing in people like from industry who would teach, who were the experts in engineering, but they didn't have those teaching skills. So we provided that update in their training, which is available to any of the instructors. And he's right about trying to help the children. One of the things is the fact that you have kids that have ADHD, and you have kids that have other defiance as well. And what we were able to do, with the help of Neil and his vote and support, the speaker in the House sponsored in the House, and I was the Senate sponsor, and we passed that bill. That's why you have these mental health coordinators now, so that you have professional people in there that can handle those situations and bringing families together and services together. And the biggest thing we gotta pray for now is that they don't eliminate, what is it, the 504? It's an effort to eliminate the requirements to assist kids in 504. And I can just tell you this, if the state, and I'm gonna hand the mic back to you, if the federal government actually eliminates that, the minute that they said it, bam, like this, I'm gonna be putting a bill in like this, that the state is gonna pick that up in Alabama, because the kids need those services. And they're good kids, they're smart kids, they just need those services. So I just wanted to mention that also.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mayor, he has
Last question.
Yeah, he has a comment actually, so here you go.
How you doing? My name is Jude Washington. I'm a former law enforcement officer of 28 years. I'm also the founder of the Genesis Project, which is a nonprofit that's aimed at mentoring children around Jefferson County. I want to talk about what you guys say when you say that you guys do things that people don't know about. I've been privy to see some of the things that you guys have to fight for and how the state of Alabama pushes back at it just because of the majority that they have. I was an undercover task force agent at Birmingham FBI for 19 years. And in those 19 years, we had to go down to Montgomery to what's called the OCDF Commission, OCDF Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, where we discussed with other federal agencies across the state of Alabama what we're gonna do to battle the drugs that was coming through Alabama, mostly fentanyl and heroin was killing people left and right. We had some issues with methamphetamine at the time as well. This was the year before the medical marijuana bill passed, right? So they talked to all the agents there and they asked, what's the most dangerous drug in your area? And it was always fentanyl and heroin. And as we know, it's killing people till today. Every year it goes up, right? After we got through talking to these people, they decided to take the tens of millions of dollars that's given to them by OSDEF to combat the legalization of medical marijuana and to combat the fentanyl and heroin. So what I'm saying is when you guys talk about the things that you have to do to fight and we don't know about it, that's one of those things, and I want to say I really appreciate the fight that you guys put on for us.
Thank you very much. All right.
Yeah, thank you all very much. On your way out, please make sure, if you haven't done it already, to put your name on the sign-in sheet over there. Representative Rafferty puts out a really great newsletter that comes out periodically, and when the session's over with, it'll list all of the bills that have been enacted into law, and there'll be a lot of narrative in there about the different things that were accomplished this session. So thank you all so very much for your participation.
And thank y'all. We need y'all's input to know what issues are important to you. So, really, do not be afraid to email us. Do not be afraid to let us know exactly where you are. Or if you have a question about a bill and how that's going to affect it, we need to hear from you because that's how you make us better representatives and senators. So, all right, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I need your number. Just trying to help out.